all of that. But yeah, let's get Tim Roye in here and find out what it was like to go to the White House and be a guest for the first time in his life, unless this isn't the first time in your life. And your job, I imagine it's not. So how did maybe this compare to the other ones, Tim?
Well, the other one was with the Warriors back in 2016, and that was really special for me because it was the first time I've ever been to the White House, and just to walk around and go through all the rooms and do all that was spectacular. And President Obama came out and just owned the room. I mean, he has charisma beyond belief, and he knew all about the Warriors. He didn't need any help at all. He's a big basketball guy. So that was fun. And yesterday was it was spectacular as well. I thought President Biden did a really nice job. And I hope when I'm his age that I can get down to one knee and have somebody help me up. So it's something that you don't take for granted because you consider all the great announcers, all the great players, all the great coaches in this league, and there's a whole bunch of them that either never got to do this or will never get to do it. And so when I think about that, I think about how lucky I am to get that chance.
Incredible, and just to see the proceedings, and Kamala Harris, of course, with her deep Bay Area roots and her Warriors ties as a fan from Oakland. It was pretty cool to see that all come to pass. Let's talk about Steph Curry in the moment, coming in with the president, looking presidential. I'm not asking you to project out Steph Curry in a political career. We don't know if he wants to go that route or not. But how does Steph Curry look and feel in that room in that moment?
He looks like he belongs there. I mean, he certainly has that type of presence, and he has that type of ability to get people to rally around him. And so when you think about that and think about all the good things he does, he could very easily just be living on a mansion in the hill, counting his money and just going on incredible trips and doing everything else. But he doesn't do that. He and his wife, Aisha, they give back to the community. They're concerned about kids. They're concerned about families. And so he certainly takes his position and makes the best out of it for everybody.
Tim, can you please explain what was it like for the Warrior players when they found out that they weren't there because of their championship, but you guys were invited to the White House to celebrate your California Sportscaster of the Year award?
There you go.
I'm pretty sure that they don't know that, but thank you for that. I appreciate it.
Congratulations, man. Congratulations.
It's really it's incredible. To me, it came totally out of the blue. I had no idea about it. I had no idea. When they called and said, "Hey, you've been nominated," and I said, "Nominated for what?" And because I didn't know. And so, when you go and look at the names that have won before, I mean, even going back a year, the great Kate Scott, who's breaking down barriers and doing a great job with what she does. But just go to the names of like Vin Scully and Chick Hearn and John Miller and Ken Korak and all these great announcers, Bob Miller, all these great announcers, from other sports and other venues, and to have and Bill King, to have my name in an award that was won by Bill King. I mean, you've got to be kidding me. I mean, that just really brings it into perspective for me, and I'm very, very flattered and humbled that I got that award.
No, it's incredible, Tim, and I'm glad that you're able to at least flex on it a little bit. I hate to bring you down with the reality, but you are 32 Sportscaster of the Year awards behind Vin Scully. So, I mean, how are you going to close in on Vin, Tim?
Well, it's funny. You look at got a very nice text from an old friend of mine, Bruce Howard, who's the voice of the Tulsa Hurricane, and he and I basically, started out in the same league. We were both in the New York Penn League. He was the voice of the Watertown Pirates. I was the voice of the Eagle Blue Sox, and so he sent me this text. He goes, "Hey, look, I don't want to say anything. I've got two of these." He says, but then he puts a big laugh high. He goes, but I don't have the comp that you have out there. So I'm certainly not looking to pass Vince Scully. I don't think that's going to happen. But just like I said, just to have my name on that it's just crazy.
Yeah.
Just to think about that.
Scully, Enberg, Hearn, Bill King. I mean, they basically held it down for like 40 years, Tim.
Yeah.
Oh, it's unbelievable. And, you'd have to go back. And I don't think there's been another Warrior announcer to win it since Bill King in the 70s. I know Greg Papa won the award, but I believe he was with the Raiders back in the late 2000s. Yeah, so he was long gone from the Warrior page. So, again, as I tell people, any list I'm on that links me to Bill King by default, I'm thrilled with.
May Vin rest in peace. If you bring a Chargers jersey to his gravesite, I think you might be able to catch him. That's just my take. I think yeah, that's the best way to close the gap is give someone a Chargers jersey. But
nice.
no, Tim. Let's talk a little. I know. Let's talk a little. Let's talk a little hoops.
Can you imagine? Guys like Dan Fouts watching that, or even going back goes to Sid Gilman watching that? They must be going nuts.
Yeah. Well, especially in the NFL when you've got a great quarterback. Like it's wild. It's absolutely wild sometimes. But Tim, definitely as they get ready for Boston tomorrow night, would love to talk a little ball with you and answer a question that we were throwing out to one another yesterday. I've reached the point of scratching my head with regard to why, and I know all the injuries, but why is the Warrior defense not better?
I just don't think they're really tied in yet. I don't think they've really had the type of consistent lineup and effort to get that done. Now, I think what we saw the other night in Washington, game on the line, the defense tightened up. Their best defensive quarter, in my estimation, was the fourth quarter. And so I thought that was really interesting to say the least. And so I think there's that. And I think also, too, that they've, other teams know that they really don't have a shot blocker on the roster other than maybe Draymond. Wiseman hasn't played enough to become that guy. And so, when you factor all that in, it's really hard to become a consistent defensive team.
And the defensive inconsistency has been really rearing its ugly head on the road. Is that where you would point the finger in terms of why they've been such a bad road team, yet so much better at home?
Yeah, I think the defense has a lot to do with that. I thought at the beginning of the year, I initially attributed that to the fact that they were coming off a championship, and I think the guys weren't mentally ready to start the grind just yet, and they were hit with a quick road trip right off the bat, and so I think they weren't ready to really start grinding yet. And so, the core of this team's a veteran team. They can read a calendar. They know it's November, and what happens in November doesn't matter to what happens in April and May. So, except for seeding, obviously. But so I think there's part of that. But I think on the road, I just think they've gotten a little scattered. I think they kind of wait for their jump shots to take over the other team, and you can't do that. You got they hadn't won a game coming into this trip on the road of their three or four road wins. Had all been when they shot 50% or better. And that tells you that they hadn't had that grinder game where they shoot 42% but still win. They need to put a few of those in the bank, so to make the next step. I will say it's really, there is something really interesting. I went down the rabbit hole the other morning, and a year ago, this week, the Warriors were 32-12, right? Got off to that great start.
Uh-huh.
Boston's record was 23-22.
Right? Sounds familiar.
So two teams that kind of flipped their seasons, if you will, but it also tells you that it's still mid-January, that there's still plenty of time, not just for the Warriors, but for other teams to get their act together and to start playing like a championship contender.
Because of the recent history now between these two teams, and for most of us who have never been to a basketball game in Boston and maybe never will, give us a sense of what's awaiting the Warriors in the stands tomorrow night.
Picture, your most hated rival in high school, and pack that with 17,000 of those guys and give them no restrictions as to what they can say, And that's what you're going into. You're going into this, it's going to be a fired up Boston crowd. They're going to be ready for this game. They'll be certainly saluting Draymond in their own unique way. And so I expect it's going to be a real hostile environment on Thursday. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's good. I think we've seen this year that for the most part, when they're healthy, the better teams bring out the best in them, and I expect that on Thursday night.
Draymond Green has been kind of two different players this year. There's been the technical foul recipient and the ejected player, yet there's been the rejuvenated two-end, all-court force. Where do you put Draymond Green in terms of this game and his ability to stay on the floor?
I think he'll be good. I think he understands the need for him to stay on the floor in a game like this. I thought in that Detroit game when he got ejected, I thought that was kind of a weak double technical. I really hope we get back to officials warning guys, and then say, hey, cut it out or I'm going to have to give you a T. And then that ends it. That stops it right there. And we used to do that a lot in the league. We don't do that anymore. But I hope we get back to that. But I think he understands the gravity of it. I think you'll see a good Draymond performance.
Tim, congratulations again. Have a great call tomorrow night. We'll be listening. Thank you so much.
And by the way, I'm hosting tonight for Kevin Dana on the roundtable.
Oh, beautiful!
I'm going to have a nice sit down with Steph Curry on our flight to Boston. Talk to Mark Spears, and we're going to look back at that game in San Antonio and the trip to the White House. Should be a fun show.
32 more, Tim, and you catch Vince Scully. Hang in there.
Got to vote for me, Dibs.
All right,
Let's
buddy.
back the vote.
No doubt. It'll be an election sensation once it happens again.
There you go.
Almost. That was close.